Welcome to the Golf Quest. I'm your co-host, Scott Hartman.
And I'm Chris Hartman. From Pinehurst to Shinnecock Hills, we played a lot of golf together, including completing the top 100 golf courses in the world.
We've met some great people during our journey, and we're excited to share those stories with you. And now,
the Golf Quest. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of the Golf Quest. We're here with Bryan Danehy and TJ Blakemore, along with my father, Scott Hartman. Golf clap for Bryan and TJ. Thanks for joining us today. We always like to start off by talking about logos, because if you know anything about us, either from previous episodes or just knowing us, we're a little bit of logo snobs. The Hartmans here, and that extends to our wives as well. So, what are you guys rocking today? TJ, what did you say you got going?
Yeah, I've got a Calusa member logo going on right here, if you guys can see it. Very simple, green and white. It's the flag that they put up for.
And I think what TJ is trying to do is a humble brag that he's a member. So we will post his phone number after this, so that anyone that wants to get on Kalusa can give him a quick call.
I like your hat, by the way. Your hat.
Bryan, what are you rocking today?
I've got a Caves Valley shirt on today. 30 minutes down the road, I think you two are very familiar with Caves Valley.
Yeah, absolutely. Great spot there. I've got the CCY logo on.
Nice.
Bryan, being the GM of Country Club of York, knows that one well, and he's got it in great shape this year. Probably the best I've seen it in a long time.
It's been a perfect spring for growing grass up here, and we're excited for the season.
Yeah,
it's year 2 after the Big Bunker project, and course is looking great. We're really, really thrilled.
Absolutely. Dad, what do you got going on there?
Yeah, I'm wearing a Medina shirt logo for my golf partner TJ. I see Bryan's wearing a Caves one, so he probably wants to be my golf partner next. That's good to lobby. And then have a CCY belt, and I'll stop there with all my logos.
No, at least you specified golf partner, because the way you talk about each other, I wasn't sure if it was life partner or not, but good to know.
Well, I'm glad to hear he's got a belt on. I was concerned he didn't have pants on, so I feel like I better grab that too.
Well, that's a good segue, I think, for anyone that doesn't want to listen to any more of that. We'll go on to some of the golf trips, really great golf trips that we've all done together. Some the four of us, some individually with Bryan and TJ. So, Bryan, I'll let you kick it off. What was your most memorable course, moment, story? Go.
Yeah. So I've been fortunate enough. I was taking some notes here earlier today, and that I've been fortunate enough to be on 5 different trips. So, the first one being for looking back was Oakland Hills up in Detroit, and I grew up about 45 minutes outside of there. So I remember flying into that and looking down and seeing a lot of stuff and having some fun up at Oakland Hills. That was pre-fire at Oakland Hills and pre-renovation. So we're gonna have to get ourselves back up there at some point. And then after that, we flew back over Lake Erie into Canterbury in Cleveland, which was another old classic. I think it was fitting. I did move my pictures around. That's Ohio Stadium behind me, because I figured this was going to come up. Getting in or out of Canterbury as an Ohio State grad, there was we took a road through not such a great area as we were getting back to the airport, and I had to hear the whole time about how it was Buckeye Avenue. So that was one of the first moments of the epic trash talking with this group. That was a ton of fun. So that was a real memorable trip. And the other part of that trip, I think might be the most memorable, is Dan Mail joined us, a local government official here in South Central PA, and we went up with him and in his little plane. And we're flying out of Cleveland, coming back home, and I've got a big passion and excitement for aviation. Was really excited, and Dan's like, "Why don't you ride up in the cockpit?" I said, "That's great." So I'm sitting next to him, and I know Chris was over my shoulder, and all of a sudden, like, every indicator light lit up red. Yeah, and like, is this supposed to do that? And he goes, no. And I remember looking back at Chris and thinking, okay, what's going on?
Well,
here?
I can
But,
fill you in on my thoughts there. I remember when they all went off and I heard it, and all I did was look out the window and I looked down, and we had to have been at least 100, 200 feet off the ground, and I was like, okay, well, there's no rescuing us here. We're either gonna make it, with these lights going off, or we're dead.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I got to say, I was sitting up there the whole time as we were making the way back to York thinking, Dan's a good guy. I just met him. He's older than me. He's probably like my dad's age or something. And I'm sitting there thinking, and he's in good shape and good health, I would say. And I'm sitting there thinking, well, God, if something medical happens with this guy right now, what the hell would I do? And I kept thinking about that the whole way down. And then all those red indicator lights didn't help that thought. But it was awesome. So I think the first trip was a special one for me to be part of this this journey, that you play a very small role in the journey, be part of the group here. So that was kind of special, and I know we went on 4 more since then. So I'm sure we'll get into a lot more of the other stuff. But I would say those two elements with Canterbury and to see Oakland Hills pre-renovation, and ultimately we'll get ourselves back there post-renovation as well.
Yeah, absolutely. TJ, I'll throw the same question at you. What's your favorite course or memory or moment?
There's a bunch of them. I've been lucky enough to be invited to, I think I counted 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 5, combined with going to Country Club of York a couple of times for your great foundation outing, which I want to plug because I know it's special to you guys, the Hartmans, and it's a great event that you guys put on for 2 days. I had blast this past May. We played your course, Bryan, and I love that place. It's I don't know if it ever made the top 100, but it's certainly a gem of a golf course. It reminds me a little bit of a course that I grew up on, Flossmoor Country Club, that it doesn't get the recognition that it deserves, but nonetheless, it's a wonderful course. Going back to your question though, Chris, I mean there's a number of great moments, right? We could talk about the quad press that occurred, I believe, for the first time.
The classic. That's definitely a classic.
Medina.
Everybody wants to remember that,
right?
Yeah. Do you remember what led up to that?
Yeah. Well, all I remember is that my partner, your father, and I ended up winning that match. That's all that I remember.
Well,
I don't
you
know.
You must be getting old like my dad, TJ, because that memory is not correct. The quad press was to get you guys back to even. But I remember that was the first time we met too. And we showed up there, and we were shooting the shit a little bit, and then we go out to the course, and it's I think it's the 3 of us and Robert Perkins, who works for us and you go, hey Chris, what tees do you want to play? He's like, I usually play the tips. I'm like, okay, sure, let's play the tips. I was like, I think I was like a 10 handicap, so I was getting like 13 strokes off you or something like that. So the match was almost won before the whole thing started there.
13 strokes? You were begging for 13 strokes, and you hardly gave me a stroke. And he gave you 13. That's my partner. He's very generous and very, very kind.
Well, Chris, you are a co-host of this thing, so I don't want to get into your handicap or the sandbag that you are. Ever we play together, it's seemingly like it's around in the low 80s or 70s, and I got to give you so many pops. But we won't go there.
Yeah, TJ, to that count, TJ, you should see the amount of requests the handicap committee at Country Club of York has. It's pretty remarkable. Just to review that Chris Hartman handicap. We spent a lot of administrative time on that. So yeah, judgment's coming.
I appreciate all the attention that I get, at least.
The grievance committee is about to
rain down.
Comment.
Haters gonna hate, TJ.
I thought it was not the weather that made one of these other trips so special, but it was us bearing through when we went to Maidstone. You guys brought Jay with us. And my brother and I played Friar's Head the day before, and it was 65 and beautiful, and not a puff of wind. And then a storm came in that night, and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but the high temperature that we probably saw was nearing 50 degrees. I don't know if it ever got there, with sideways rain. And I remember like holding on, like looking at my hands, and just they completely pruned up from how wet it was, and like just how raw your hands get in that kind of weather. I got to give a lot of credit to your father. At 50 plus years old at that point, that guy was bearing through walking that golf course. That was quite a feat. Nonetheless, I do remember, Chris, do you remember standing on, it was on a back nine. I don't remember exactly what hole it was, but the tee box was basically
it was like 9 or 10, yeah.
And there was a huge house to the right of us. It was a brown house. It was gorgeous. And we were kind of talking about, okay, how much do you think that house went for, sold for, whatever. And I think we were all wrong by double, meaning it was worth double what the highest individual said it was. And like, that was pretty wild. We fought hard, Scott, that day. I do remember, though, us coming up short on that day, and that was a tough pill to swallow. But that was that place to me is one of the coolest, best golf courses I've played, and the weather. And I mean, obviously, you guys have played hundreds of amazing courses, and it's probably very difficult for you guys to say which one's your favorite. But to me, that was such a special place, even with the weather. I thought that the layout of that place was spectacular. Kind of going through those inland lakes, and then getting out to those different points in the green complexes were spectacular. So those were two stories and places that I remember fondly. Of course, the first time I met him at Medina, and then there at Maidstone. I do, however, have a special moment, but it's more selfish, and that is with this entire group. And when I believe, did we start in Chicago? Did we
did
play
Butler at the end
together? Is that right?
So we came and picked you up in Chicago, and 3 of us played Chicago golf before we grabbed you. Took you up to Crystal.
Right. We went up to Crystal and we played. We played Crystal first, correct? Right. And I love that place. I've been lucky enough to play there a couple times. That golf course is special. I mean, it doesn't matter how long that golf course is; it always plays hard. Similar to Maidstone, and in my opinion, in terms of just how amazing the vistas are. But that course, that's a Mackenzie course, which was a special time because I just really enjoyed that golf course. I love it. But then we went over to Kingsley Club, which is one of my favorite places to play. And
besides just
I don't know. Do you remember what happened there, Scott?
You helped the winning team with a hole-in-one.
Yeah, I think I had an ace on, I think it was 6 or 7. And that was pretty sweet. That was my second one ever. I've been playing golf for 35 plus years, and that was my second one.
And
so
probably
that
the
was
cheapest
awesome.
bar tab for a hole-in-one ever, wasn't it?
Yeah, we walked off that golf course, and there was another foursome there.
6 guys there all day.
That's an awesome course, though. Isn't that one that's so quiet you don't hear a lot about it? But that's top 100 caliber in my book.
Yeah.
I agree. Kingsley's a special place. It's awesome. There's a lot of fun green complexes there, if you guys can remember, where a lot of them are punch bowls. So even if you hit it off a little bit left, a little bit right, like the ball kind of found its way back onto the green. And to me, that makes it a lot more fun to play.
Well, you talk about fun greens, and I'll go back to Crystal real quick. Do you remember, I think is it like the 5th or 6th hole that has like the crescent moon green?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's 7 actually, I believe, because 8's the par 5 that goes up the hill, 7's the moon, and the pin was back left.
And I still have the picture
right?
where you putted from, TJ. And, you know, we're going to have to probably show that up here, you know, when we finish the editing. But you were putting from one side of the crescent moon, and I think you had to hit it up a hill, not on the green, but a hill that was to the left of the green to get it back to the pin. Does that seem accurate to you?
Yeah, and I believe other people tried to do the same thing, and I think a ball got stuck up in the rough, I think, because somebody pounded it so hard. There was at least 15 putts, I think, collectively within our group on that. That was a tough one.
Absolutely.
That pin was outrageous. But like you say, those green complexes are ridiculous, and that whole northern Michigan area I feel is a little bit underrated. Doesn't get the love that the East Coast gets, that the Bay Area gets. But yeah, there's some wonderful golf courses up there.
Oh yeah. Well, let's, you know, we can talk about Butler as well if we want to stay on that trip. And you know, I always say Butler is at least in the top 3 of the hardest courses I've ever played, if not number 1. I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah,
I agree.
I'd echo that statement as well. For me, it was the hardest course I've ever played.
It's a bit short
And we
for
didn't
me,
even play it all the way
but,
back.
you know, I made it work.
Were you at the
I
forward
couldn't get
tees,
forward
Dad?
enough there, and
I think it's the rough. I mean,
The rough is unreal.
in a normal day, right? It was playing like U.S. Open rough.
Right. And it's don't get me wrong, it's fair. It's a fair test of golf. It's just hard. You know, the rough is lush and healthy, and I mean, you're not losing balls left and right.
No.
It's just you hit it in the rough, it's a stroke and a half penalty.
I mean, I'm sure TJ shot like 65 or something there at some point, but
No, that never even sniffed a 6 in the front of. I play there a bunch. We've got I've got an uncle who's there and a couple other really good friends that are there. They have this thing called the Butler Cup every July, and they invite different clubs throughout the country, and it's a great event, and they put on a great show. But they make that Monday event, the first day, they make it nearly impossible. So they put the pins in the most difficult places. The rough is grown up. The tees are back. And the rule is, so they don't embarrass, and most of these guys are scratch or pluses that play in this event. And the rule, though, is that if you don't break 80, they don't post your score. And so, but if you break 80, you get to post your score, and everybody gets to see the fact that you broke 80 on that difficult course day. That place is a place, and there's probably only a few of them in the country. Probably Oakmont's another one where you could literally host a U.S. Open within a week, right? With just how difficult that place is and how thick that rough is, and there's a lot of force carries, and but it's all in front of you, like you guys said. I mean, Scott even said it too. Like it's not unfair, and it's just brutal. And it's for
you have the creek that
right?
flows
And it is
through
long.
there, so you gotta,
that's a
measure
tough
your
track.
shots to make sure you can carry that creek because it goes through the course a number of times.
Well, and I think we played from like I'll call it the middle tees, right? Which whites, whatever you want to call them, and it was still 6,800 yards, something like that. And I'm like, we're talking about playing the tips when we were going in there, and it was measuring at like 7,500 and like a 155 slope.
Yeah.
It's a par 71 too. So
place is unbelievable.
I've dreamed of shooting 100, but good thing I didn't do it that day.
Yes.
Well, TJ, if you want to hear a fun story about Bryan, we can go to one of my favorite clubs that we had on the trip, which is Myopia Hunt Club. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but that's a really cool one up in Massachusetts. And Bryan, do you want to set the stage, or do you want me to do that for you?
Yeah, I can get it started. So that was a great trip. We and if we remember about that trip, so we went up and we were fortunate to play the Country Club in Brookline and then play Myopia, which I think is a real like sleepy under the radar. When we got there was nobody else there. It was us and employees and, the little tiny driving range and all that kind of stuff. But one of the interesting things, because I know where this story's going, is if we remember right, this is the second date we went up there, because there was a date to play it before, and there was a remnants of a hurricane or something rolling through Massachusetts at the time. So if it weren't for the weather, I don't know if necessarily this would have happened. But I'll set the stage. We're on the back nine at Myopia. And Myopia, you start where the clubhouse is and the golf shop is like the lowest point on the property. And you play up into like this bluff and an absolutely gorgeous, gorgeous property. Obviously, it's a hunt club, so they've got polo and equestrian and all sorts of other things. I didn't see rackets or pool or anything like that. Really small F&B operation. Really, primarily kind of a rural golf course, I believe, in the north side of Boston. And we're on the back nine, Chris, and you want to take it from there?
Well, all I remember is this: that we get on the green, we're in a match, so there's some serious dollars on the line. TJ, you know about that, and some trash talk coming out. And next thing I know, Bryan hits his putt, races up. I'm pretty sure you swept it from like 6 feet and just said, call it a two-putt. I'm getting out of here.
Yeah.
And I go, what is happening? And I see this horse coming down from the hill to go down to the polo field. And, I happen to know that Bryan is deathly afraid of horses. So,
yeah. Not one you're expecting to hear today, TJ. Where are you?
Trust me, you're gonna. I'm gonna wear my polo shirts for him every time I play.
Yeah.
From now on.
Yeah.
And I think you were wearing like an Apple Watch or whatever that was measuring your heart rate, and you did show it to us when we got to the next tee, and it was somewhere around like 135 or 150.
Yeah,
Who's afraid
it was about 150.
Who's afraid of a horse? They're great animals.
Yeah, and I
try to explain this. Maybe we should move on.
Back up here on horse. Yeah, you just let that go. So, so to me, horses. So I've never had a bad experience. I've never been thrown off a horse. I've never ridden a horse. The closest I want to get to a horse is a paintbrush or a glue bottle. Like that's.
Yeah, you're going to get some feedback from the horse lovers.
Yeah, that's where I want to get. There's just something about horses. So I understand, and I imagine, of all the barnyard animals, if you will, we eat cows, we eat pigs, we eat chickens, we eat turkeys, we eat goats, we eat everything. We don't eat horse. I understand it was your car at one time. Now it's no longer your car. But I feel like a horse knows it has no predators, whether it be human beings or others. And there's this like smugness to a horse that it's up to no good. It's mischievous. Why? And then the other part is there's nowhere in the world I could possibly go where the only way I'm getting there is on the back of some equine animal. So the people that are like, oh, it's beautiful, I love to ride it. Like, do you really? And then it's not a lack of control with me, but it's machines are input in, you get output, etc. Do I really want to strap my body between my legs a 3,000-pound beast with its own brain that can decide to do whatever it wants to do at any given time? So I just feel like they know that they're higher up on the food chain than they think they are, and we're just nasty monsters.
So which scares you more, being in an airplane when all the lights start buzzing and going off, or having to stare down that horse?
Oh, the horse, not even close. There were times with my wife and I when we were in Venice together in the tight roads in Venice, Italy, walking, and then a horse comes by. I'm like, oh, no. And there's a picture actually on the outside of my office at the club, and it's of me, and I'm in Haleakala Crater in Maui, and there's little tiny paths you walk through, and there's a sign that says, if horses walk by, please kindly move to the side for their safety. And it's right at the edge of this cliff. And Jen took it. My wife took it when we were in Hawaii. And my staff printed it and threw it on my door because they thought it was hilarious. And I told Jen, I said, if a horse comes by now, enjoy the life insurance. It's been great because I might be shooting off the screen. Yeah, I'm
Wow.
not a fan of horses.
Yeah, but I have to say, after the horse incident, it took you a few holes to get back, but then your game really started to come together, didn't it?
Yeah, I started playing really well. And that was it was either I believe the hole with the horse, I think was like a long uphill par
Mhm.
4, and I hit my second shot in tight because I remember being on the left side. I hit a 3-iron into that green and put it in tight, and then I saw it and I thought, oh God, I'm sitting there thinking, all right, I'm going to birdie this hole. This is going to win us a hole for sure. I'm sitting in there tight, and no, I went up there, slapped it real fast, scraped it, and I said, I'll see you on the next tee box. I got to go. The next hole I remember being kind of a really unique par 3
Mhm.
with some major bunkering on the right and some real interesting green complex.
Oh,
Another part of that trip, Chris, that you may want to share the viewers on or the listeners on here, and Scott, you may remember this, but there was an interesting part of the front nine, if you may remember.
There was.
So on the front nine, if I remember correctly, you play up a little par 4,
mhm.
and then you got a pretty good par 4 across, then you go left, and I think it's like the 4th hole.
Yeah, so there was a short par 3, or actually a long par 3 right before it, a short par 5. So it was that short par 4 on 1, short par 5 2, long, like 250-yard par 3.
Yeah, long par 3.
And then a pretty long par
Then it was
4 that kind of dog legs left. And the greens were slick, if you remember.
Yeah.
The greens were good. And, I hit a really good drive. And honestly, a pretty good second shot. I'm like, a couple feet off the green on the, on the fringe. I've got a 8-foot putt for birdie on this, like the number 5 handicap hole, 4th hole. I'm feeling pretty good about myself warming up. And, but like I said, the greens were moving. It was a downhill putt to the hole. I hit it. It lips. And it goes another 40 feet and rolls into a bunker off the front of the green.
Yeah.
And that 3 turned into a 6 pretty quickly.
So I don't think most people listening would realize that course has hosted how many U.S. Opens? 5, 6? All
It was something
different
like wild, like 5 or 6. Yeah.
It was hosting U.S. Opens. And for that one, I just remember the fescue. That fescue was like up to my belt. And it was gorgeous, unless you were in it, and then you thought otherwise.
Yeah.
Well, and we had no caddies. Remember, they didn't have any for us, so it was us pulling our golf bags on our own, or walking, carrying, whatever you want to call it. And there was like stone paths like that were a foot wide. Your foot fit on it, and you had to just sort of waddle your way down these hills. Because it was some serious up and down there.
It is. I had that one
a really
listed
cool spot.
as if there was a course I was going to break my ankle, it was there. Because that was literally in my book the hardest golf walk that I've had anywhere, because it was not only up and down, but the paths were kind of early 1900s, probably designed for horses.
Yeah. Another reason to not like horses, Scott. We'll take you on our team.
I'm just looking forward to riding a horse into our golf outing next year.
Yeah. Do it somewhere else.
Well, another trip that we had, and TJ, I think this one was with you, was down to Calusa Pines, that we're all wearing here. And your dad is one of my favorite people. You're okay. But, we had a great time down there with you and your dad and my dad and a big group. What's your thoughts on that trip? And, obviously, what do you think about the course? Because maybe a lot of people here probably haven't played it. So, you want to give them a little background on it?
Sure, I'm happy to. I think Kalusa, Gary Chenzoff is the creator who created and started the club back in, I want to say it was roughly 2000. So it's been around for 24-ish years. And he's got an amazing story. He had a health scare built the golf course, lived through it, beat cancer, is still running the show there. The same individuals that came on board, Walt and Mike, still run the day-to-day operations of the place 24 plus years later. So I think that just shows you kind of how special of a place it is, and how great Gary is. We were lucky enough to join back in like 2018 or 2019, right before like the really large, post-COVID increase in golf interest throughout the country. But it's, from a golf course perspective, it's pretty fair off the tee. I feel it's visually intimidating, but it gives you enough room to kind of miss off the tee, and then the teeth start to kind of come down on you on your approach shots. And the safest spot, and I tell everybody this at that place, the green complexes, they are so severe around the edges of them. It kind of reminds me of Pinehurst to a certain degree, but on steroids, because the greens are much smaller. So the targets are much smaller. The greens are usually run at 13 plus. They're very firm. When they really get going, they get this kind of whitish, they almost look white. There's absolutely no grain on the Bermuda. And so they're known for their firm and fast greens with their green complexes. If you miss pin high left, you miss pin high right, you miss long, you're kind of done. It's a very difficult shot to hit, especially with the fact that it's Bermuda fairways, right? So it's pretty grainy when you're chipping around the edges. But the safest spot always on that golf course is to stay just in front, right the front, in the center of the green, in the front of the green, I should say. And you can always find your way into making a par. So we are so lucky to be there. My dad and I, and as well as my brothers, I've got two younger brothers. We've had so many great times there. It's a special place for us. We've always kind of dreamed of one day kind of getting in the mix at that place. And so we love to take, people that we love being around down there on a 1 or 2 day trip. I know that we stayed in the cabins when we were down there. We had a great time.
Well, I'll say the thing that struck me, TJ, going there was, if anyone that's played Florida golf knows it's like flatter than flat most places, right? And there isn't a flat hole on that course, I don't think.
No, and they spent a lot of money just creating the golf course with they spent a lot of money on dynamite to start. And there's a little spot on the left of the 15th green where there's a pretty big tree, and that was the flat part, and where everything it's at this bottom, and it looks pretty. It's in a low line area, but that is literally where all of the land was prior to the dynamite being blown up. And then they built up. Of course, you've got you see it first, I think around 8. The little short par 4, and then 9, you kind of walk off to the top and you get to see the clubhouse looking westbound. And then if you get back up on and on 12, the 12 tee box, there's water left. If you guys can remember, that's a hard hole. And then 16, of course, is a signature hole, the par 3, water on 3 sides. And but you're kind of perched up, and so in Florida, especially in the winter months, I mean, the wind kind of blows pretty good too. So you're up on the top of those man-made hills, but they don't look like that, right? They almost feel like you're in a different place other than Southwest Florida. The wind's blowing, and all of a sudden your ball's getting tossed around.
A beautiful spot,
So,
and
yes, you're
I
absolutely
remember
right.
people trying to intimidate me before I went there about bringing a lot of golf balls. And, that's one of the rare Florida courses with, water around, all kinds of vegetation. And, I played the same ball 2 days in a row. And that made me feel good because it is a playable course. I remember watching Chris over on the other side of the palm trees and having to hit, shots all up over. And I just enjoyed walking the fairways. It's a great fairway walk.
Yeah. Well,
It
you know,
is.
it's the
It
nice
is indeed.
part to me was leaving with extra money in my pocket. So, you know, thank you guys for that. And TJ, you know, that late night putting session, I think is what hit you the hardest.
Yeah, we there's a little putting green just outside the cabins that you can get out there and mess around and chip and putt, and you know, they do a really good job there of taking care of people and taking care of the guests, and we every time we go there feels like a vacation, right? And it's just a cool spot. Similar, in my opinion, you guys have been very generous, obviously to me. And inviting us and myself to Caves, and you know, Caves is a great spot. It's got the cabins.
It is.
It's got that's a Fazio course, right, Scott? If I'm not mistaken.
It's had one. It has the 2025
and it's held a
BMW coming back, and they're just reopening June 1. I'm going to be there. Yeah, so they replaced all the greens, put in a sub-air system for the greens. Did a ton of work, so I'm anxious to see it. But yeah, it's that's a pro caliber course, because that's the one last BMW. What Cantley and DeChambeau went at it, and Cantley won after 6 extra holes going up 18. So yeah, that's my special hideaway. You know, when I hide away at right on Country Club of York, but when I want to exit town 45 minutes away, that is one special place. It's sweet. Glad to have you guys there. Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Well, I'd be remiss too if I didn't transition. Sorry, TJ, to cut you off on the BMW and PGA stuff, though, to talk one last trip, Bryan. If you remember, you know, up there in Canada, and I think there's a tournament. Is it this week? Is the RBC?
Yeah, it's interesting. That's a real good timing, a good segue. That I think it was the three of us, and I believe Wes joined us on that trip, and we were fortunate. Went up and played St. George's in Toronto the first day, and then drove down south into Hamilton. And you know, Hamilton is an incredible both St. George's as well, both incredible properties. St. George is a very difficult golf course, but Hamilton 27-hole facility, real interesting setup. And I think it's the east and the south, if I remember. Champion ends, but I could be wrong on that. But I think we got there the night before. We played one of the nines, and they were real gracious with us. The biggest thing I remember with Hamilton was the impeccable level of service that they provided there at Hamilton Golf. I remember making a comment that Chuck Zaranek is our superintendent at York, and he loves a particular beer that you can only find in Canada, this IPA called Alexander Keith's. And I remember sitting in the locker room, and I saw it was on tap. I said, okay, maybe I can get some or whatever. And a plug to the head pro there, Emerson Mahoney, a wonderful guy. Not only did he pick up on that, but as we finished the round, he had a whole case of bottles ready for us in time. We didn't have enough time to go from there to a shop on the way back to Pearson Airport in Toronto, and he had a case of beer ready for us, and made our superintendent's day for sure when we brought that back across the line. But just an incredible trip up there, and timing is impeccable. Yeah, the RBC will kick off this week.
Yeah, and if you remember when we landed there, you talk about the service and everything. We go straight to St. George's, and there's only 2 carts sitting outside of the clubhouse in the front. And those are our carts, and they say "Welcome, Country Club of York," to St. George's, and you don't see that anywhere else that I've been. And then you get on that golf course too, and those greens may have been the hardest greens I've ever hit into. I mean, if you were in the rough, TJ, you couldn't spin it on these greens. It was like hitting it into your wood floor, and hoping to stop it. Eventually it'll stop, but you don't know where.
Yeah, you had to play it short and bun them up all day long in the rough.
Oh yeah,
you had no chance.
And so
wonderful golf.
Definitely those 2 courses, again, they're up in Canada, but not too far. If anyone gets the chance to go play those, I would highly recommend them. You'll love the service, love the golf. There's definitely more special places. And I think that's the fun part about all these stories that we've gotten to tell, right? Is that, you know, it's been special doing it with you guys, and it's been special where we've done it, because I mean, to get to go play them, and, you know, for me getting to do it with my dad is always fun. Even though we like to talk a little bit of smack, it's you know, it's what makes it, you know, unique, and you know, gives us stories to talk about here, and, you know, some people can relate to, and, you know, so, because they like to talk trash too. So you know, thank you guys for, you know, doing all this with us, and, you know, playing a lot of great golf and joining us, even if you know, even if TJ loses a lot because he has to quad press, you know, going into the 18th hole, you know, at least you got a hole in one out of it.
Well, I did. But Chris, I want to flip the script for 1 second, quick, and I want to ask. I've got a father that of course, I'm very close to, and I work with him, and he's my boss, and so there's a common theme here between you and Scott, and we went to Scotland, and we walked the old course, and I was with my brothers, and it's the only time I think I've cried on a golf course is walking over this Oakland bridge, and together with that, I was curious if Scott, if you had a moment like that, because I don't know if I've asked you guys this question, because Chris takes up a lot of the air when he talks. So I want to ask Scott, you know, like when, and I've got a son, by the way, too, 6 years old. So like we haven't experienced any bit of this. But Scott, is there a place, maybe not connected with me and Bryan, but a place that you remember where you kind of looked over and you got a little bit emotional, or like it hit you more?
It's funny you mentioned the old
Chris.
course, because the first time we played there, we were the first group off in the morning. And for me, I love strolling the course, not just trying to find my golf ball, but usually mine's in the fairway, so that's good. May not be as far as Chris, but it's in the fairway. But walking down the fairway with him in the morning, and the sun's coming up, and you look around and you realize how fortunate you are to be doing it, and doing it together. And then on top of it, we were carrying my grandfather's persimmon driver with us, and Chris hit that off of 18. And we've done that at a few great golf courses, but to do that there, have that chance with them, you can't buy that stuff, you know. You just have to be in the right moment, and we got it, and we lived it. And I look back on stuff like that, you know, we're going back a few more times, but places like that where golf really started, and we were on our journey. That's the fun stuff. We've watched the sun go down there as well. So, yeah, that place has very special memories. A lot of other places too, but you know, probably the only other one I remember is walking up 18 at down in New Zealand at Kidnappers, and we just played through the rain sideways. We had no caddies. My glasses blew off my face twice in the round, and all we're doing is laughing as we're pushing pool carts up a hill into the wind, feeling like you're not ever going to get to the top of the hill because of the wind blowing in your face. And the two of us were literally just laughing that we had done it. We were there, only ones to play that day, get to the top of the hill, look at the 18 green, and there's not just a stream flowing through it, but it's like practically a river flowing through it. You know, hit the ball onto the green and said, "Goodbye, ball." And that was it. And we just laughed because nobody else went out that day. We did. And you just can't beat that time together. And yeah, you can laugh, you can cry, or you can pay your bets to me, Chris.
Don't worry, I've got a lean on a few things for you, Dad. So, but no, TJ, you're absolutely right. Like, there's just a lot of great memories. You know, for me, I would say it was recency bias probably plays into it, but Shinnecock when we finished, you know, first of all, just knowing it was our last course, it was going to be the 100th course on the list that we were going to finish. and having my great grandfather's persimmon wood with us again. And this time my dad hits it off the first hole. I hit it off 18. We've got, Michael Bloomberg and Obama behind us. And then, we get to 18 and we finish, and my wife Hillary and my mom Kathy are there waiting for us, and the caddies knew all what was going on, and they enjoyed it and had a great time, and definitely, that's definitely, the moments that you kind of tear up, right, and go, man, I don't know if it was like, hey, we finally did this, or like, oh man, we finally did this. But it's it's special to get to do it, with your dad, and and we walked a lot of the golf courses too, haven't we?
Courses. That's part of the way golf should be in my book. When you can, Country Club of York, I can't walk the back 9 anymore. That's a bit too hilly for me. But walking golf courses. But our caricature for this podcast was Chris and me coming off of 18 at Shinnecock, boarding our golf balls that we did it, and that was Titleist printed up special golf balls for us, and they were so great on doing that, because it was, we didn't know if we were going to finish at Shinnecock, and they sent us golf balls that had the date and had the course, and said Chris and Scott did it. So you meet so many friends along the way, and you make new ones, and that's what golf is really. Your family and friends. You can't ask for much more in life, and you get it in golf. Live it.
Yep.
I feel, Bryan, I feel you certainly agree with me that I am personally so thankful to be along for a part of your ride and your journey throughout this. I know that it started a number of years ago prior to us even meeting. But to be able to knock off a couple of these with you guys and to get to know each other even more, and the father-son deal, it's amazing, and I'm so thankful to both of you guys for including me in your journey. So thank you.
Thank you both.
And I'd echo this, TJ. Just so grateful and fortunate to be a small part of this, and as I was looking at my notes, I fortunate to play 13 different courses with the Hartman clan here, and it's been wonderful. But I can't echo enough the same thing of the father-son duo part of it is, I've got a son in high school, but I grew up in this business that as a country club executive. My father's a country club executive, retired now after 45 years of doing this. So golf's been in our blood, been in our veins, and one of the things that's always been really special to me, as I look back and, fortunate to play some wonderful places with you, I can't really remember what I shot. I can't really remember what I played, but I can remember the people we were with and the times we had, the laughs we had, the critical moments of putts, and that's the stuff that sticks with me when I think back on these trips. When you forget the nuances or the details of this or that or the other, when you're playing with and you're around with great people and you're forming great friendships and great relationships, and it's been wonderful to be a small part of this, and look forward to many more times playing golf together between here and
great.
And
let's
wherever
do
life
more.
takes us.
And again,
So thank you.
The Hartmans are a little bit competitive, but you know what? If I'm not laughing when I'm playing golf with you guys, then it's not worth it. We're going to always go out and have fun. If you're not enjoying the golf for all the reasons, then go back to the office.
Absolutely.
Yep. Well, as we get ready to sign off here, I do have a trivia question that I like to throw one out, in every podcast. I've got one for you guys, and it ties back to, some golf that we played together. So we all know Alistair McKenzie, right, was the designer of Crystal Downs. But there was another famous designer that helped him with it. Do you know who that is? And can you name at least one of his other top 100s that he designed?
Yeah, I can. Perry
ahead, Bryan.
Maxwell, young Perry Maxwell,
Correct.
was involved with that early part of his career. And Perry did a lot of stuff in the plains areas of the country and those types of areas. So I'd put him at Southern Hills.
That's one of them. Yep. Do you know the other one, TJ?
Chris, I will say this. I knew it was Perry Maxwell. I don't think I can name another.
You're going to be disappointed when I say
course. Well, was it?
Yep,
was it?
that's
Was it
it.
Prairie Dunes? Did he do Prairie Dunes?
What a great
good.
place.
Okay,
Go out to
Yeah.
Glen Torvald.
I'll just
Got
say
us, invited
Yeah.
us to play that one years ago.
Mhm. Yeah. So great job, guys. I think you guys I made it too easy on you or something, but you might be the only ones that got the question right. So congrats. Another golf clap for you. And thank you, Brian. Thank you, TJ, for joining my father and I on this edition of the Golf Quest. And hopefully we'll see you guys soon.
Thanks for listening.
If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. We'll see you next time on
The Golf Quest.